All right, guys, welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath, 9th day of April, Tuesday. Of course, I'm being joined by the wonderful Eric Lovely, who's waiting in the wings to join me for this first hour. Hour number 2 tonight will be Ellen Brown back on the program. She wrote an outstanding article today that we're going to talk about. Winner takes all, the super priority status of derivatives. So we'll break that apart in the second hour. And, I asked Eric tonight what do you want to talk about. He's got a few things he wants to talk about. But I'll tell you, if you want to call in, 877-342-6673, we will we'll entertain any topics tonight. Eric, welcome back to the program. Of course, I do want to start with this, if you don't mind. It was a story I was reading right before the program. ATF sting operation uses brain damaged man, then charged him. I don't know if you've had a chance to see this story or not yet, but it's another example of how our enforcement, I'm doing air quotes if you're on Justin TV. By the way, if you're listening and not in our chat, go to wideawakenews.com, click on the radio microphone. That'll take you into chat. If you want to see me and Mr. Lovely doing this thing live, you can access the Justin TV feed from the chat room is there. Gary is running the whole show. Thank you very much to Gary for producing the video portion of tonight's program and posting on YouTube afterward. For those of you, and let me say this too. Eric's clapping, nice. Let me say this too. People are wondering what happened to Friday's program. Karen Quinn Tostado's program is up now. I don't know what the technical issue was on Friday. However, I did talk to Brett today, and he got that fixed. So it is posted. If you want to hear that, you can go to wideawakenews.com, click on the archives, and it would be Friday night the 5th, and you can listen to that rebroadcast. Okay, Eric, ATF sting operation used brain damaged man, then charged him. The gist of this story is one more where we see so-called enforcement using a dupe, using a rube, using a guy who could barely put in a light bulb, and I'm not exaggerating here. His estimated IQ is in the 50-point range, to ride around on his bicycle, 28-year-old, I'm not even going to say his name, 28-year-old riding around on his bicycle, and hand out flyers to this store. The name of the store is Fearless Distributing, and he's riding around town handing out flyers for this store. Well, the store was an ATF front where they had all kinds of stolen equipment in there, stolen auto parts, drug paraphernalia, that kind of thing, and they were looking to have a sting operation. People coming in to do transactions, I'm assuming, inside of Fearless Distributing. But at the end of the day, they ended up charging the 50 IQ point individual for going out and handing out flyers on their behalf. And in fact, we had one individual, this is a 30-year member of the Milwaukee Police Department, said, I have never heard of anything so ludicrous in my life, talking about this ATF sting operation. But you know what? This, in my opinion, Eric, this isn't really anything new. I mean, obviously, we're not going to hear about it in the establishment media. It'll just get scored in some column as a victory for the alcohol, tobacco, and firearm, and whatever they are now, and explosives, whatever moniker they're running by now. They'll be championed or propagandized as yet another disaster averted by their quick thinking and their wit. But in fact, it's just another rube that they line up to take the blame, do a staged event, do a sting operation, and pretend that is fighting crime, when really all it's doing is continuing to paralyze and terrorize the people of this country. And this poor individual, 50 point IQ, riding around trying to earn a few dollars, is made the scapegoat. Your thoughts, Eric Lovey?
I mean, the poor guy was just trying to get some bling for his bicycle.
Yeah.
I mean, but really, all joking aside, because it's not his fault. Really, it's quite pathetic, and I hope that somebody does something for this guy, because the way that they spoke about him, and I've looked at several reviews, and I've looked at there is an article where, and I want to see it when it's released, but AP has an advanced copy article that's going to come out on this guy, and basically it is done by his psychological. I don't know if it's a psychologist or psychiatrist. I don't know which one he's seeing, but whoever helps him to adjust on the government dole, helps him to adjust to society's people making fun of him and so on and so forth. And this person went on to talk about how that it was complete insanity that the police officers would do this to this individual because he can't even 9 times out of 10 he can't tell you what right and wrong is. He can barely tell you where home is. And now he's part of this ATF sting operation. But I mean, what it really boils down to, if you look at the Julia, the Department of Homeland Security whistleblower from back in 2009, where they basically killed her father when they raided her house, and she took him to court. When they mess with somebody who's got a little bit of intelligence, the whole entire thing was videotaped, and they had no warrant, they had no nothing. They just landed a Black Hawk helicopter on her front lawn, rolled up in her house, took all of her stuff out of her house. And when it went to court, it fell apart. There's lawsuits ensuing. The federal government is scrambling around to distance themselves. So they picked these type of individuals for, yes, nothing more than intimidation and fear. And the reason why, this is part that some people are going to be, I guess, offended by. But it's okay, because that's what I do. When you look at the population, thank you. When you look at the population, really, I would say 90% of the population are children. Okay, yes, they're of a certain age and they've been on the planet a while and maybe they have a job and a wife and children, but they're still nothing but immature children, because an adult would weigh the options, they would look at this situation, they would know something is wrong, and then they would stand up, they would march down to that police office, or they would march down to the FBI en masse, they would drag these hooligans out of there, and either do something with them, as far as take them to jail, do something with them. But we don't. We sit and we cry and we whine and we shout and we shake our fists and we throw.
No, we don't. We don't even do that. No,
well, yeah.
We don't even. I mean, that isn't even happening. There's nobody crying for this guy.
We don't even throw the tantrums.
Yeah, there's nobody crying for this guy.
As a whole, mostly when these situations happens, when they're taking away your rights and so forth, people are waving their fist and they're angry, but they don't physically actually do anything. You see, a mature adult who's in a situation that is unkind to them, that is unfair to them, and no matter what is going on, well, they're going to look around the room and say, okay, well, people, it's been real nice, but I'm leaving now. I'm leaving this situation. Well, look at the system. Do we leave? I mean, how many people leave? How many people honestly actually get up and leave? How many people stop paying the taxes? How many people say, look, I'm an adult, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, we're out of here, we're going to go do our own thing, you guys keep being lunatics on your own, but no one does. And this is, everybody talks about this, but this is the reality where it boils down. It's the reason why nobody wants to really fess up and own up to it, is because we're just children. We'll pout, we'll complain, but we're still going to pay them taxes, we're still going to go to work, we're still going to continue playing the system's games, we're still going to play into their authority, we're going to basically give them the authority by complying. Now, if we simply, like a strike, or like Karen has talked about, which would definitely escalate, but if we would simply just stop playing, just say, look, the game's over, you cheat, you rig the game, I'm not a kid. I'm not going to sit here and suffer through this. I'm going to be an adult. I'm going to make my own decisions. I'm going outside, and you can sit here and rot by yourself. And you do see some of that coming into effect with the small percent of the population that actually thinks for themselves and they are mature. You see some of the sheriffs, and you see radio announcers, and you see these people saying, well, look here, I've had enough. I'm moving on. I'm moving on without you, and you're staying behind. But this is the reality. So we're in this situation, and I feel bad for this gentleman. I wish in some way there was something I could do for them. I actually, I did donate some money to his fund and whatnot, so that he can get, he's got a defense fund and so forth. What are you looking at? But anyways, so we really do what we can. But the idea, it's the same whole idea when people tell me, they complain, they say, well, you're not really free. Well, freedom is an ideology, okay? It's a state of mind. So people really need to understand, and they need to mature, and hopefully someone can help this guy, because I'm afraid he's going to be he could get raped, molested in prison. There's all kinds of things that happen.
Nobody cares. That's the problem. Nobody cares. And we're talking in the empirical nobody here. And, nothing is, he'll just get, he might get let off because of the extraordinary circumstances around him. But this kind of crap happens every single day. We're going to be back with Eric Lovely. More Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath joined by Eric Lovely. And if you were listening on Justin TV, you heard we're going to continue this conversation. We are a conversation about the kid in New York who, and I'm just going to give a backstory, Eric, and then I want you to explain what was going down here. A guy in New York lost his license to have to be armed. You know what? If Freeman Burt's listening to me and hears me say firearm, he's going to email me. So he lost his license and therefore his right to have arms because his kid showed up to school with a squirt gun and talked about a BB gun. Eric, this doesn't shock you at all. I mean, this is New York after all. It's the test bed.
Well, actually, if you look at New York, it's New York City. If you look at the top 9/10 of the state, they're really quite outraged. You see, you had 32 rallies around the state. Basically, they were, anti-legislation or this anti-gun legislation rallies. They all put forth candidates that will repeal it. Yeah, I would say 9 out of 10 counties in New York now are on pace with appealing or repealing legislation or nullification to nullify the New York's new gun laws. So, I mean, there are some surprises there.
But these other counties in Buffalo and throughout the rest of New York, if you're in New York and you want to talk about this, 877-342-6673, aren't these laws being handed down through city government? Bloomberg, well, 8 million people in New York.
It's really the whole idea of it is that they're pushing it for a statewide, okay, that it's going to be that it is state legislation, but the population of New York City, as balanced against the others, they're really going to have to band together because they're voting against New York City. So, timeout.
I'm giving you timeout because I'm looking at the chat room right now, and you're making people throw up because they're watching you while you're rocking. And they said, "Eric, please quit rocking. I'm going to be sick."
Okay.
At least know they're watching.
I'll try not to rock any. I'll just move side to side.
No, don't do that either. That'll make me sick.
But yeah, I mean, so you have these difficulties going on, and everybody's talking about this gun legislation, and at the same time in upstate New York, around Oswego, if anybody's familiar where the bar capital of America is, it's called Oswego, New York. It's lake effect snows, things of that nature. I've been there many times. It's a wonderful little town, except for the astronomical number of bars that are in it. If you look at what happened around the Oswego territory over the last few days, everybody's arguing about gun rights. Well, they're actually testing these drones. Okay, the military surplus drones are physically on the ground being tested in New York right now to work the communication bugs out, to work basically all the telecom stuff so it can communicate back to its central hub with audio and picture and the whole idea. They're testing it over the terrain to see which model of military surplus drone is the best one. And, these things are going on as they speak. Everybody's wanting to be hush-hush about it. Nobody's wanting to talk about it. The news is acting like it isn't there. Of course, that's what they do. But you have individuals who are actually talking about these drones being tested as they get ready to go into effect, and nobody's paying attention to that. And all the individuals, like the individual who went to do a private sale in New York now, who's facing 35 years in prison because he attempted to make a private sale on a firearm.
Get into that a little bit. I didn't read that story yet.
I can't actually. It was on. Here's a plug. It was on the Next News Network. They were doing a whole entire segment on this, and basically what the guy did is he had a weapon. He is a veteran. He is a decorated veteran of 4 tours, or some. I think it's 3 or 4. And he just came back from Afghanistan and whatnot. He's gotten out and he decided to sell his weapon in a private deal to make some money. Well, oops, he sold it to an ATF officer. So now he's looking at 35 years. And if you look at the picture, they don't talk about the barrel. Like, they have everything circled on the gun, on the weapon on a picture. The magazine, the foregrip, all the pistol grip on the rear. They have it circled. And they're giving him felony counts for each one of these modifications. Okay? They're not giving him a felony count for one thing, like attempting to sell an illegal weapon. they're stacking them on top, and they're
Yeah,
considering each modification to the weapon
as
as
a
a
new felony.
felony,
Yeah,
on
I
top of him attempting to sell it, which is another felony.
where was this at?
So,
I mean, where is this in New York as well?
yeah, that's actually in New York. If you look at today's, I can't remember which video it is, but I know Gary Franchi. Well, I'm pretty sure Gary Franchi was the spokesman for that particular video, and that was on the Next News Network. And he actually talked a little bit about both cases. And you can go over there and get some more data and some more source information and follow the story as far as you can. But that was over on the Next News Network. So if anybody wants to see any of that stuff, go over and check out Gary Franchi and the Next News Network. Look at their stuff that came out yesterday and today. You'll also see other interviews and things that are going on. But those are the stories we're talking about. So check out what Gary Franchi and the gang has going on over there in their videos. But yeah, they start talking about this gentleman in the prison sentence and what's going to happen to him. Then there's an issue out of California that I don't know a whole lot about, but individuals really need to understand where they're going, and they really need to understand what is really taking place here. And the government is in its death throes. I mean, it really is. That's where you're looking at now. See, the prolonged death of the dollar is orchestrated because here's why. The idea is to shake as many precious metal bugs, as many savers, as many anyone as they can from the tree. And one of the best articulations so far was Pastor Dow that called them silver monkeys. But that's what's going on. They're trying to shake the last vestigials of wealth holders who aren't on their side out of the
You got
tree.
that right. You got that. You got that exactly right. We'll be back with Eric Lovely. More Wide Awake News Radio. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio, hour number 1 on this 9th day of April, Tuesday. Eric Lovely joining me as we continue our conversation. Eric, we left off with this guy in New York being the first to be arrested under their new laws. I did drop an article in there that I found just doing an internet search on it. And you said that it's over at Next News Network as well. Gary Franchi did a report on it today. Check it out. Is in this article it says he was released on his own recognizance. Are they gonna put the hammer down on this guy?
I don't know. I mean, the reason why he got ROR'd, that's released on own recognizance, is for those of you who haven't had any encounters with the system. He got ROR'd because of his military record. Because one of his superior officers or someone who knew him that had some type of brass hanging off of him spoke as a character witness. You know what I mean? Saying that he wasn't a terrorist, that he was just looking to make some money, and his intention wasn't to break the law, and this, and that, and another. So that's why he got RR'd. He didn't get let off or anything,
right?
But
he's just out. But if somebody's tagged with half a dozen felonies, it isn't like you're just going to be released on your own recognizance. You're going to have some pull to get that done.
And another thing that they bring up too, I think they would like to look. I don't know. This guy poses so many bonuses for them. Okay, because through this court case, they can attack veterans. Okay, and that's really where you're boiling down to is when they can get a certain individual that creates a certain mindset within the people that are watching, and then they can destroy them. Well, that benefits them. Like if it strikes fear in the veterans and these things, because that's what this guy is. So it starts bringing more to the table. And if there's been a huge push lately to make veterans seem completely unstable. They don't need to own firearms because they come back with PTSD and all these different mental ailments, and the
PTSD part is true. They do come back with PT, but I mean the push to demonize veterans, no doubt that is that has been underway for quite some time, and why wouldn't it be? These are the people who are seeing the results of policy over the last decade. I mean, they're generally going to be pissed off.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's deservedly so. So this is the whole idea. Do I know what's going to happen to this guy? I mean, wow, I didn't believe that they would have slammed him with so many felony charges right out of the gate if they didn't want to use him as a scapegoat intimidation tool. You know, they could beat him up and punch him around. You know, and it also is a litmus test. Like, well, if we lean on this guy and we pound him for a while, then we can pause for a moment and look around. Are any other veterans getting angry? Are they going to do something about it? Are those veterans going to come to his aid? So it's also like putting your big toe in the water. Well, if
Yeah.
I pound this guy into the ground and none of his fellow veterans stand up and say, "Okay, we're going to take you out with the trash," then we can push it a little further. So there's so many different things at play here that could be going on. And it could also just be some woman who's a man hater, for all I really honestly know. But when it boils down, you look at the facts of the matter, you look at the progression that they're going in, the destination they want to be at, where they have full control. I mean, they that it just seems like an opportune guy that they're going to stomp on.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me. It seems like it's going to be nothing but a litmus test, and they're going to hit this guy with everything but the kitchen sink, maybe even the kitchen sink too, and they're going to try and make everything that they can stick to strike fear in other veterans, speaking out, talking out, doing whatever. And it's the same thing with the kid and the gun and taking the rights away from the parent because the child said something about a firearm. So, I mean, these are really all intimidation factors. And, you know, I really, the one of the big thing, I can't remember Julia's last name, but she's been on Alex Jones's show several times. She's talked about her story. She was the Department of Homeland Security whistleblower who started talking about, you know, them letting these. She blew the whistle on fake passports being allowed by Department of Homeland Security by Al Qaeda. She reported it. Her whole entire story ensued 2 weeks after she was let go or she was involuntarily retired. All of the people supposedly guilty of the 9/11, you know, plane jackings rolled right on through the exact point where she was blowing the whistle that Department of Homeland Security was letting these people through. She's the lady that had that without a warrant, without any indictment at all. They basically landed on her front lawn. This is completely honest. You can watch her movie because the neighbor videotaped the whole entire event, and now the neighbor has subsequently passed away, and he was only in his 20s. Okay,
What was her
so
job? Where did she work?
she worked actually for the Department of Homeland Security at passport and sensitive transfer data. It was at the border, and it was in, I can't remember where it was. It's yet a it's another video. You know, there's a video on it. When you start to dig a little deeper and go to her website, it's an Alex Jones video. So if you go look at InfoWars, but it's not Alex Jones on it. I can scroll through here.
I'm looking at a story here. Whistleblower. I mean, 9/11 Al Qaeda passports were issued by CIA. U.S. consulate whistleblower. I'm assuming this is probably her.
Yeah, she's got like dirty blonde hair.
Yeah, I don't have the picture. First, I thought you were talking about Savelle Edmonds because she was a whistleblower working for the FBI as a translator. But
Yeah, but this one then actually she was actually handling documentation of the people crossing the border and the people coming into America, and she was doing it. You know, she had noticed several discrepancies and several issues and problems, and she followed the chain of command. She went up the chain of command and turned the stuff in, and basically how it turned out was they dropped a Black Hawk helicopter down on her front lawn. They flooded her house with 30 some agents. They drug her elderly father, an immigrant, out into the lawn in his boxers and nothing else. As he was having a heart attack, they dismissed the ambulance and refused him medical treatment, and he died. You know, she's got a whole actual documentary movie on it, so people can source it by actually watching the videotape. That and you can get that. I know you can see it on her website, but there are links to it on the InfoWars site where you can go over and from there and watch it too. And basically, so while all this was going on, the neighbor, you could actually hear him in the video. He's videotaping from his front door. He's videotaping the chopper, all these people raiding her house, taking stuff out of her house. They actually physically took all of her property out and set it on the ground, went through every inch of her house. Her grandfather died of a heart attack during the situation. Well, this guy is like 25 to 27 years old who was recording it. and you could hear actually in the video when the Department of Homeland Security sees him, he makes that statement out loud. He said, "Oh my God, they saw me." So he goes back in his house and he continues to record the incident through the window. Well, subsequently, he was found dead in his home with absolutely no explanation as to how he died. He was alone, sitting on his couch. He's never been heard from again. He has passed into the ever after. But luckily, before this situation took place, he handed the video off to her, and that's how she made her documentary, was using that video and the information that went on there. So this is the reality of what's really going on here, and people really need to
What's her name? What's her name, bro?
Her first name is Julia. I know. I just watched it a little while ago. Well, you pick up the ball here while I look here.
Yeah, Julia, not Julie Davis. Oh, yeah, Julie Davis documentary about national security whistleblower. Documentary about national security whistleblower Julia Davis or national security process. Blaside, blaside. I don't know if that's the same lady or not. I mean, it's one story after another about whistleblowers who end up, whatever. I mean, if it's either government or it's industry, they end up coming out and talking out, and then they end up in the hereafter. We're going to be back with Eric Lovely and a little more information on the backside of this break. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment of this first hour. Eric Lovely is the guest. Eric, there's other topics you wanted to cover. Shorter segment, about 12 minutes or so here. I'm just going to turn it over to you. What else did you want to touch on tonight?
There was something that I wanted you to take a look at. I know that he put out 2 episodes back to back, and I know you probably have heard and probably listened to Max Kaiser when you get the opportunity.
Yeah.
Did you see? I can't remember the old guy's name. I'm doing so horrible today, but they made this interesting proposal of a gold digit, okay, that basically is the telltale sign. This guy is the guy they had on. He's a very elderly gentleman with white hair. It was either his very last episode or the one right before it. I'm pretty sure it was his very last episode that just came out today. But this guy is talking about how that there is correlating data and a telltale sign when you subtract the gold cash price, which you have to call brokers and whatnot to get, from the paper price of gold, the future price. Mm-hmm. And that number, it was a mathematical equation, and hopefully you can take a look at it, and we can start talking about this a little more when you get the chance. It's like a 40-minute video. So take the time to take a look at it. But he's talking about how if it is more than a reasonable difference between the two prices, in other words, if it's 2 or 3 times as much, then it's probably a correct pricing. If it's 5, 10 times as much, it's not a correct pricing. I don't know everything about it, but he was talking about that this is the main indicator that him and some guys from MIT and whatnot are predicting the complete and utter destruction of the monetary system and the one world banking system to come into effect. And this is a highly educated man, and he was talking about backwarding and some terminology that has come specifically from him. So I could definitely tell you, anybody who wants to watch the video, it was very riveting for 40 minutes. I'm going to have to watch it again to get the full gist of what the gentleman is saying, because Max likes to jump in and talk. But I definitely want to direct your attention to it, and maybe you could talk about it on one of your shows, or have the gentleman on.
Was it Paul Craig Roberts, as I jump in like Max Kaiser does?
I think so, but I'm not completely sure. You really, since we're all over the place here, I know it's not James Turk, but that keeps popping into my mind. And yes, it is Julie Davis. The video pops right out in my face now that I see her name. There it is. There it is right there. But yeah, it's a Max Kaiser video that just came out, and it's just an interesting talk about gold and some other indicators that I really didn't understand completely. It's episode 411, and it's called Media Moron Mockery, or actually it's the one before that. So you could look at episode 410 is the Max Kaiser video that you're looking for. So I
thought I saw Paul Craig Roberts recently I thought I saw a clip of him with Max. I don't know if that's the interview that you're talking about, but I'll definitely check it out. You know what? And what's weird, Eric, is I mean, even though I was only gone for like 5 days, the lack of news, the lack of news that at least that I could disseminate because I don't speak Mandarin, was amazing. I mean, although the scare tactics and everything like that were all still in place when I came back. Especially about North Korea and Iran and all this. But it's amazing how much you do miss when you check out of these information streams that you and I are used to digging into every day.
What do you make of him, issuing, basically pulling an Adolf Hitler, where he issued his own press release, Mr. Pijong Slim, and he told everyone that was a foreigner.
Did you say Pijong Slim?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
He told all the foreigners in South Korea to leave town because he was going to nuke them.
Yeah.
And, he took an ad out in the paper telling them to leave town because he was going to nuke them.
Did he say he was going to nuke them, or he was worried about a nuclear strike from the West? I think he was more, trying to paint the picture that his nation's under imminent threat. And you know what? Look, this is ultimate government media control, right? And he, in one way, I think he's doing this. Kim Jong-un is what we're talking about. And one way, I think he's doing it because he needs support in that country. I mean, he needs things. They need food. They need help, and they need some of the sanctions and that kind of thing lifted. And usually in the past, when it was Kim Jong-il, his dad, or throughout history since the end of the Korean War, they've done these type of releases and statements. But I think in a lot of ways, it's to keep their own populace under control, keep them fearing that they're under imminent attack, so they have to completely give themselves over and keep giving themselves over to the state. So, and you know what? There really could come a time. Obviously, North Korea. We've all seen the satellite photos of North Korea at night. How there's not even a light on inside that country, and it's the people are starving to death over there, and the very few Westerners who managed to sneak cameras into that country have shown a people that are if you're in Pyongyang, first of all, you're the tallest North Korean in the country because they put the fittest, healthiest looking folks either on the DMZ or in Pyongyang. And if you happen to be there, you're still underweight by about 15 pounds from the folks in the South and about 2 inches shorter. But that is where the best and brightest end up, in a city that's opulent, to say the least, with 8-lane highways with no cars on them. I mean, the country is obviously backwards, and this is complete totalitarian control. I think that a lot of the blustering is, justifying the leadership, justifying to the people, throwing their little bit of minuscule resources into a massive military complex that they have built up over there. And, this isn't a stretch to say that this same tactic is being used on the American people, right? We're constantly being fed a diet of fear and the need for expanding our presence around the world. I don't see it as any.
Well, I see it. I see a big difference.
Go ahead,
Mr. Slim. Okay,
yep. Kim Jong
Slim. He's at least honest. He is a dictator. He is a naked dictator. He stands out in front, says I'm a dictator. He says, he acts like a dictator, looks like a dictator, doesn't hide from it. Over here, it's a lie. Yeah. Oh, we're not dictators. No, we're not those guys, but they are. At least Mr. Slim is honest. He's still a dirtbag. He's still a dictator. He's still evil, but at least he's honest about his evil intentions, and he's honest about, strutting around on TV in his expensive cars and a big fat belly because he's the only one eating in the entire country.
Yeah.
But this is the reality. We look at him and we want to hate that guy, but you know what? At least that you're not going to want to turn your back on that guy. If you ever have a meeting with him, you're going to look him right in the face. You're going to make sure you know where the exit is. You're always going to be looking at him right in the eye because you don't want him to do anything thrifty. He may try and stab you at any moment. Okay? Where the politicians here, well, they give you a Coke, they shake your hand, they give you a smile, and then when you're all comfortable not looking, they gut you like a fish. You know what I mean?
They might even hand you a cell phone and a JP Morgan debit card to go out.
That's right. Here's your EBT card. Have at it. Here's your free cell phone. You know, just rat on your neighbors and so forth. And I'll also talk about New York City, and I'll tell the people if you're in New York, and if you have any stories about this, please contact me or Charlie, because I'm sure we'd love to hear about it. But they actually implemented the snitch program at $500. And if you snitch on your neighbors that they're trying to sell guns or that they have guns, you'll get $500, no question asked. So the snitch program is swinging directly into effect. So that's why I say New York, like you said, it's a trial balloon or a litmus test, whatever you want to look at it. They're definitely hitting the ground running here in New York, and they're trying a whole lot of different spectrums within New York.
They're going to get it.
See how it's going to go.
They're going to get it in play. I mean, New York is the Patriot Act. New York is the legislation waiting in the wings for the entire country. So somebody in the chat room said at the beginning of the program they were talking about false flag, and who knows? I mean, I don't know what in reference they were speaking to false flag, but it could be the what we got going on in North Korea. It could be how Ahmadinejad announces 5 more nuclear facilities, and they have an earthquake over there the same day, killing some people. Or we could be looking at a false flag of yet another mass shooting where we know pharmaceuticals are involved and dupes are involved and a bunch of people are killed. And the next thing you know, it's because we've been talking about it so much in the mainstream and how the mainstream propagandists are all on board. We have a rollout of some type of gun control that will be implemented through executive order, and it will be a model like we see in New York. So I look at New York as the Patriot Act of gun control.
Yeah, really, quite honestly, I definitely think you're on the right path there. And something else I want people to research too, because I want people to look at what's going on, and I want them to really, really know what's happening. Is start looking into the articles about Obama being the leader. Most of them have a rare radical title: Obama, leader of Al Qaeda, and so on and so forth. But the reasons why these articles are talking about this, and you can research it, it is now proven, ladies and gentlemen, that the number one funder, the number one contributor to Al Qaeda terrorists is the United States government, as directed by Barack Hussein Obama. Now, that means you, ladies and gentlemen, you the taxpayers, who are suffering under all these oppressive laws to fight Al Qaeda, are the number one financial supporter and contributor to Al Qaeda on the face of the planet. So you figure it out.
How with time running out here, how was it determined that we're the number one? Is it through supporting so-called rebels? What's it about?
Yes, that's what they did. They went through and they calculated all the money that was given to the Syrian rebels, all the monies that were given to Afghanistan, and compared to the Muslim nations, we spent them $5 to one given to these people.
Makes absolute sense in this insane world where truth is a lie and reality is what they tell you it is. Erick Lovely, thank you very much for joining us again on this Tuesday. We'll talk to you Thursday. Guys, stay tuned. We're really going to get into what I believe will be the catalyst for the implementation of every control apparatus that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, which is a sovereign debt meltdown. Ellen Brown wrote a great article today about derivatives. We're going to talk about that with her on the backside of this break. Hang tight. We'll be right back.